Okay, an update on what I'm trying to figure out in the Pontiac wiring harness. Since we had to just get a universal, basically bundle of wire in a fuse box, I thought I was going to be able to go ahead and rebuild these. One, not only does it not quite line up, so that wouldn't work out, these terminals are very difficult to get. They're the Packard what were they called, twist lock connectors, and you can find a few of the smaller wire diameter sizes still out there for an exorbitant amount of money, and I just didn't feel comfortable using that kind of arrangement where I'm trying to feed a heavy gauge wire through a 18 gauge connector. So I went ahead, went up there and dug out a harness and recovered a 68 and later style GM bulkhead connector. I've been in here. ShopDog says hi. He approves. So I'm starting to square that off as best you can in that area. It's very difficult to work, but I've got it so that this connector can now get through, and I've located where the two screws would go. But the beauty is this connector should just drop right on like that. So I can build the engine harness portion separate and then bring it back in, just like you would get on any other, one where the car was supported. So, and this uses 56 and 50 and looks like 259 series connections, and has more than enough connections for what I'm trying to do. I've been kind of mapping out, here's what it used to be, and of course no ammeter won't do that. And then here is what they're handing me. I'm going to use a couple more pins because we do have some other signals that I want to go through. I'm going to send switched power over to the MSD Atomic. Plus, at some point, I've got to start figuring out how I want to pass wires for the Dakota Digital Cruise Control setup. So, yeah, it's still a pretty basic car, though. There's just not a ton of signals. I'm going to go ahead and terminate the fan connection in one of the 59 locations, even though, at this point we're staying mechanical, just so that I can always still have a feed. And if nothing else, now I've got a spot where I've got a 30 amp fuse available that we can always add later. And then I can just go up and harvest a couple of one headlight and one engine harness connectors. Yeah, I can see one right there already. And there's a couple boxes of them up there yet. So there's a reason why I don't tend to throw those things away when I update a car. You never know what you're going to need to reuse. In fact, that's the harness I just recovered that block from. You can see this is a pretty standard GM fuse box from 68 and later. I'm trying to think, I think that might have come out of a 69 Camaro. Oh yeah, it must have, because here is the connection for over to a console. So okay, so that did come out of a Camaro. Could come out of a few cars. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to use the stock one, and now I know why nobody's bothering with them. Those pins are very difficult to get. Although I still have the stock harness for this car sitting here. A few cut wires, but that's not going to be the end of the world. I'm going to have to harvest some of these shells when I'm building up the new harness, because this is it. This is what you get. Here's a bunch of wire. And then at least the ignition switch is already terminated. But yeah, so we'll be working with that, and that's the new actual horn relay. So there won't be a horn relay under the hood anymore. And this car was already converted to a one-wire, so the alternator problem isn't going to be a big issue. But I'm going to see if I can just go ahead and pull a plug or something and convert this back. Because if you can, you're still better off having a remote sense and picking another point as your regulation point. Also, being able to have the ignition switch turn the field on would be better than having to rev the alternator up to, 1600 RPM to get the alternator to start. Oh, geez. So, anyway, the air compressor just kicked on. So, that's kind of where we're at for right now. Okay, just another little part since I'm editing videos anyway. Just kind of going through, starting to pull the harness apart, rearrange a few things. Because, of course, I wanted it to still be vertical words, I'm going to have to completely relax the whole harness, move things a different direction. Plus, there's an awful lot of wires going to places where I'm not going to need them for our application, as well as there's a few things in this auxiliary harness, like the fuel pump wire, that I'm going to probably bring out into the engine bay and then use that to feed a relay, and then have the fuel pump wire from the MSD computer turn the relay on. I'm still working that out. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I'm just getting that sorted. Also with this kit, it's not my favorite, but it comes with one ungodly massive wire to go from the starter to the fuses, and the fuses over to the alternator. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. What is this, 200 amp service here? I could almost run a mobile home on that. But, it's what the kit comes with. Well, okay, fuses are rated at 175. So, yeah, they're slight overkill. And I may go for a different approach on that. Okay, and in this section, I have this controller all apart and lots of pictures. I'm very happy with how that comes out. This will clean up real nice. It'll give me a chance to paint the part that's going to be visible. And then I'm going to have to map out and see what I can do about this lens. It's a little more complicated than I had hoped, but I think I'll be able to make something. It'll take a few attempts on the laser to get something that pops in, but I think I can come up with something to replace that with something that makes more sense for us. And then gotta get all that back together. And then the one problem I have here is, and you can see they got little numbers stamped on them. That's a 1, a 2, and a 2. The problem is I've got 2 2s. Well, actually, I've got 3 2s. And they set the angle when you push the little button. And that angle is what I'm going to use, for this little plate here. I'm going to use the rotation of this plate to basically turn the knobs into kind of a slider going from the floor, or no, from the dash to the defrost to the floor. So we're just going to figure that out. So I'm going to wind up having to make some new shapes here, I think. And these were obviously stamped out of sheet metal, so we'll figure this out. There's a way to make that happen so that I can get 6 distinct locations, so that I can have the pot read those 6 values from lower to higher, and then it'll do 6 different things. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap the video here. Just did a little more sorting, just figuring it all out. Also starting to think about how I'm going to integrate the harness from the MSD. If it was one of the Holly harnesses, I already have ways that I do that, but I've got to learn how this harness is set up. I've got the heater stuff kind of sorted in my head how I want to do that. So I've got some things I've got to design for the laser, and then I've got to figure out how I'm going to get some stamped sheet metal, or what I'm going to do. Maybe I can do something with the 3D printer or something. But no, so that's kind of going to be our wrap up for today. And ShopDog just came running in after chasing a squirrel. So ShopDog says that this is a ShopDog approved video.